Hello. Today we're going to do function. And in order to understand function in C language, first thing you need to do is understand how main function in C language works. Before I stop this, what I need to do is first need to make you understand the basics of C language function. So there are three things that you see in C language function. First, you see a main method. Main method is a method or function that's where the program starts. So if we look at it, this here from integer, and then you say main, that's the name of the function, main, and integer is a return type. This bit here is a return type. And that explains when this function runs, at the end of function, it should return a value. And because it is an integer value, that's why we always put at the end of the function return 0, like this. This means the function returns 0. You can put a return 0, or you can put here an integer a equal to 0, or whatever you want to call it, and then you can return that one as well, and it will not give you any error. And when you run it, it will run smoothly, like printing hello world. So what we understood from this, that a function has three components: a return type, which is integer in this case, and then you have the name of function, which is main in this case. And when there is a return type, it must return a value. So if we put here void, that means we do not expect this function to return any value, so we don't need to do this then. And we don't have to do this one as well, and we can simply run this program and it will execute perfectly fine. That is a program-defined function, which is within the program library, and we just use it. And one thing you must understand, that when your program execute, it execute line by line. So anything that you put outside these two brackets, these are this. Sorry, let me clean this. Okay, these are this bracket here and this bracket here. Anything within these brackets will be executed. Outside these brackets, for example, here or outside here, if you put anything, it will not be. So for instance, you have this one statement, and after that you put another statement, it will be executed line by line. So that's another important thing that you need to understand in the compiler. So let's go back to the function. So these are the programmer defined functions. So if you want to define your own function, for instance, you want to make a calculator. Okay. So if you want to make a calculator without a function, what you need to do is you need the following things. First, you need uh, two variables. Let me actually go there. Um, so if I write a program here, integer a, and I say is equal to 10, okay, and I define another integer, let's say I do comma here, b is equal to 20. And if I want to print the sum of these two integers, I would basically simply do, let's say, sum, integer sum is equal to a plus b. Then what I can do is I can print here the sum of um, the sum of sum is equal to, and then here I can print sums. Okay, now that's something I'm doing inside the main function. So if I run this, I should get an output that sum is 30, because there is a 10 and there is a 20. So what if I want to call a function which do this calculation for me, for example, this one, right? So I can define a function here, and I could call that function a calculator, okay? And because and whatever I define in that function, it will be my output. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm defining these two variables, okay, and I'm adding them up, and then I'm printing them. So instead of doing that, what I can do is I can put these statements outside here, and I can wrap these up into a function. Now, before you define a function, you need three things. One, you need to provide what is the return type of that function. So when you call this function, it should return you an integer value. In other words, it should return you the sum. Okay, and that's why because the sum is integer, so you will define the return type as integer, and then you need to put the name. The name is calculator. You can call it calculator. Calculator. Okay, and or in short, you want to call it just cal. Okay, and that's the name of the function. And function is always followed by these brackets, and you just can put there these curly brackets, and these are small brackets. This is, you see the main function here. So here, what you see in common in main function. Now it is not a void. This is an integer function, and it takes two. We define two variables there, and then we then define a variable sum, and we add that together. And when we call this function, it should return us the sum. So you can put here a value return sum, and it will return us sum. Without this, it will not return us sum. So now, instead of putting sum here, we can just call this function here, and it will return sum, and it will be printed there. So this will give you the exactly same output as you see here right now, this one. The output will remain same. Now what I did is initially these two statements were part of the main method here initially, but what we did is we moved them up there, and we defined another function called cal. That's the name of the function, and its return type is integer. And then that's why we put here return sum, because it must return integer, and that's where it starts from, and that's where it ends, this function. And it must be outside main method. So this is your main function. It should be above main function. And another thing you must understand is that it must not be inside the main these brackets. So because you're calling it here, so where you calling this function? If you look at it, here you are calling this function, and when you call, it will return sum, and it will give you exactly same output as this one. So let's try this. So if we do this, see, exactly same output. But what you want to do is you want to now, because every time you run this function, it will always print sum is equal to 30, and that's what you don't want. What you want is you want to pass on different values every time, and you want that to basically do whatever you pass on to two values, then you should say return you the sum. And for that one, you need to pass the parameters. So this is a space where you define the parameters. So what is the parameter? Parameter is a value which a function can take, and here you can define a parameter. So what you want to do is, what you want to pass as a parameter, you want this pass this one and this one as a parameter. So first you need to tell the function these are the two parameters you will pass. So you want to pass 10 and 20 as a value when you call the function here. So how would you do that? Let's see. First, you need to do is you need to define the parameter here, integer a and integer b. Now these are the two parameters which you don't want to permanently define here like this, and that's why you want to remove this from here. Now you put that one there, so, and then you want to pass two values to it, 10, 20. So when you pass these two values, the 10 here and the 20 here, when you call the function, because you call it by name. So when you call this function, this will be passed on to the A, and this value will be passed on to the B. Okay, so this one, because this is A and this is B. And now when you call this function, the value of A and B would be, A would be 10 and B would be 20. And when you do sum is equal to A plus B, that will add A and B together and put it into sum and return sum when you call it. So when you return it, it will again have the same output as this one. So let's see if it is giving us the same output or not. So let's run it again. There you go, same output again. Now, important thing to understand is that you don't want to do 10 plus 20 every time. So this time what we pass on is we pass 4 here, and then we pass here 5. Okay, so if we pass 4 and 5 here, so the value of 4, when you pass it or call this one here, this will be passed on to what? A, because it goes in a sequence. So what is the first parameter? A. So here is what is the first parameter? 4. So 4 will go into A. And what is the second parameter? B. And what is the second value passing here is 5. So 5 will go into B. And when you do sum is equal to A plus B, it will do 4 plus 5 and return sum, because there you're returning it, and it will, when you call it, it returns it. And this way it will simply print this time 4 plus 5 is equal to sum is equal to 9. So let's see if it does this or not. So run this again, and this time it's 9, as you can see. Now, what we want to do is, we don't want to directly print it. We want to maybe save this value. Okay, and we can do another thing. We can, instead of calling it here, we can call it integer. Let's say s is equal to this. And when we call it, because now it will, whatever return value to return, it will be saved in s, another integer variable, because, and it must be integer. Why? Because your return type is integer. So see, there are a few things you need to understand. Okay, this is your return type. Okay, and this is the value being returned. And when you call the function and you want to save into something, you must be save it into an integer. So it will work perfectly fine. And then what next thing we can do is, we can here instead of printing directly sum, we can put s, and s will be printed here, and that would be if we do it here s, that will print sums, and the sum will be still 4 and 5 9, and we run it, and it will not give us an error, and it will print perfectly fine. One thing you need to understand again in the return type, because here you have integer and you're returning an integer. So if you here do, for example, float, okay, and you run this program and see what it does, it gives you an error, right? Why? Because you see here what it's saying. It's saying the format D expect your argument type integer, because you are printing it here. So you expect an integer, whereas when the function is called, this variable is s, and here we have, let's say we put f here, f here, and now we run it again. We will get, let's see what happens now. Sometimes online GDB gets a bit crazy, and if this happens, you best copy the whole code. Make sure you don't lose the code, because you don't want to be writing the whole program again. And you simply reload it, leave it, reload it, and so this is the problem when you do use online GDB or any compiler which is online, because when there is internet, there is no problem, but sometimes there's no internet, and it gives you a problem. Now, I think this okay, while we're waiting for it, I can explain you further. I think I can leave it here. Okay, so there are a few things you need to understand. One, this return type, there's a server problem. So see, you are not able to connect to it. So we'll wait for a while. While we're waiting, I'll explain you further. So this must be the same. If you want to call it, it return you sum. Sum must be saved in a same variable as you return it. So, and now we understood one more thing. We passing a parameter. So let's say what we want to do is, we want to expand this function a little bit further, and we want to pass another parameter when we pass 2 and 3. And let's fix this one here. I was trying to make a point, but I can do that later on. So you want to, now it will not give you an error, because it's perfectly fine. perfectly fine function. Now we have a call. So what we do is we pass 4 and 5, and this time what we want to pass is we say if we pass a character, it should do let's say character sum as. If we pass characters as like this, as it means it is a sum. So see, this one is the first parameter, this is the second parameter, and now we are passing another parameter character. So that's why we need to define here another parameter character, and that would be OPT. So we can pass another parameter. OPT means that's an operation. So we can write a program here and say if let's say this time we don't call it sum, we call it result, right? So we can define a variable result, okay? And we say if OPT, which is a third parameter, is equals s, that means you must add two values and put them into a result. And else if let's say OPT is actually, let's say for addition, you can pass them, let's say, let's call it A for addition. We say A, if it is A, then it's addition. If it is S, that's a subtraction. So then what you do is you say the result is equal to A minus B. So this time you want if it is you pass here S, you should do 4 minus 5, and that would be -1. And if it is A, that will say 4 plus 5, that's 9. So, and then return result, because there's no sum now. And the reason we call it result and not sum, because if you pass here well, let's say here you pass S, then it will do A minus B rather than sum. It will just a result, it will put into a result. And if it is A, then it is A plus B. So let's do first A, and I hope by now we have the issue of internet on GDP is resolved. So I'll try it again. Bingo, that's a good one. So we have no issue now with online GDP. So I copied that program and I'm going to paste it here again. This is what you're supposed to do as well when online GDP is not working well. You just want to copy paste, and you want to do it here. So now we are calling the same function, and let me explain this before I run that function. Okay, what I did is I defined a function with 3 parameters, right? So what are those? Parameter A, integer A, second parameter is B, and third is OPT parameter character type. So the reason we did it, we want to pass on 2 values, these 4 and 5, and then we want to pass a character as an operator to tell the function either to add it or to subtract it. So this time we're saying A means add it. So what happens is when this function you call it, this A will go here, but that's 4. B will go here, that's 5. The 5 will go to B, and 4 will go to A. And the third one, which is A as a character, that will come to a OPT. So when you call it, you passing exactly same number of parameter, and they are saved in this parameter list exactly the same sequence in which you define it. So if you put, say, you define the A first, so the first value will go into A. If then you define B, the second value will go into B, and then you define a character, and that's why you must pass a character, because it's going to go into that. So even if you make the order, switch this order, for example, you put 5 before 4, then the 5 will go into A, not into B. And if you put A here in the first, you'll give you an error, because first parameter is integer, you can't save integer. So you'll be in the same sequence, okay? And that's what's gonna take it. So then when it comes here, it's gonna check what is OPT value. If OPT value is A, then it will add. If it is S, then it will subtract and put it into result and return you the result. And let's see if it does what we programmed it. And then here we are printing it. We're calling this function and it is storing in S, and we are printing it. So let's this time now 4, 5, and A. A means this will this will be true because OPT is A and it will do A plus B and result will be B. It will not go into else part, else if part, sorry, that would be supposed to be else if. It will not go into this part. Why? Because it is not as if A is true. And another thing with else if is if the first statement is true, it doesn't go to the second statement. So it will simply return A plus B. So let's, and that will be 9. So the answer will be sum is equal to 9. But if we do it here as, now when s is passed on to the parameter, it will be again, s will be in OPG, okay, and we will have basically in our result OPG is equal to s. So this A will not be true. It will come to as if s, that will be true because we're passing s, and then we'll do A minus B. So what is A? 4. What is B? 5. Okay, so A and B are 4 and 5, and 4 minus 5 is minus 1. When it prints here, it will print minus 1. See here, the answer, as you see, this is minus 1. It prints that result. Okay. Now, another important thing to understand here is that you can also do the same thing what we did last time. We don't need to cache that whatever it returns. We can simply copy it from here and we can put it here, and it will have no issue, and it will return same result. You see, now we can go further and we say else if we do OPT equal, this time we want to say multiplication, and we can do the result is equal to A multiplied by B, and then final one, we can say else OPT equal, yeah, sorry, this is like this. That's a division B. So that will be division, and then what you want to do is the result is equal to A divided by B. And now what we do is we call it here. So now if we run this program and we pass here, let's say instead of this we pass D here and we run it, it will be dividing it. So 0. Why? Because A 4 divided by 5 is 0. So if we pass 10 here, it will be 2 because 10 divided by 5 is 2. There you go. And this way you can run a small program. And next video we will do more function with this one. With this, thank you very much for listening, and I'm going to stop this. All right, thank you.